and welcome to this module about questioning. There are lots and lots of different ways about questioning. You'll have heard things about open questions versus closed questions. You'll have heard things potentially about IQ questions, information and qualification questions, versus compelling need questions. If not, there is another video about that distinction as well. This one is actually about a bigger issue around questions, I think. And it's about the three biggest flaws that I see in a lot of questions that are asked, particularly in a sales environment. Questioning is one of the single most important things that we can do in selling, because we need to make it about the customer. And one of the classic phrases that is always used in sales is the idea of we have two ears and one mouth and we should use them in that proportion. In order to listen and in order to get good quality information, we obviously need to ask questions, but those questions need to be good. In theory, we know this. We know this to be true, that we've got to ask great questions. We've got to open people up. We've got to get good quality information out of them. However, under pressure, when we're actually out in front of a customer, we actually make a lot of very simple mistakes with our questions that undermine our ability to get the information out that we want. And I want to take you through the top three that I see day in, day out when I see people in sales environments. The first one is that we make our questions incredibly complicated. Let me read you a question, an incredibly long question from a man who is renowned for asking incredibly long questions. This is from a leading interviewer with a leading news organisation in the UK. You may have heard of the BBC. The question is as follows. But the question is not whether liberal democracy, you talked about this in your lecture on the eve of this programme, is a good thing or a bad thing, as most people in this country, as in yours, think it's a desirable state. The question is how you go about bringing it. Now, let me remind you, and I'm sure you know these words from President Bush himself in the presidential debate just before he was elected in October 2000. He said, if we're an arrogant nation, they will resent us, speaking about the United States. Now, the problem is that many people who try not to look at this fair-mindedly look, for example, at the question of extraordinary rendition. People taken to third countries where they may be practices that amount under international convention as to torture, and they know that they go through our airspace. And the government said, well, really, request every time. A permission is requested every time this happens. Is a rendition flight only allowed through our airspace if the British government has been informed? Now, that question is 184 words long, and the poor interviewee stood no chance of understanding really what the question was, let alone being able to answer it. We do this all the time. We can start with a question really well, but it goes on and on and on. We put caveats around everything that we ask. What do you think about our product? The thing is, what I've talked to you so far is only part of the story about this product. What we would actually like to do is explore a little bit further, but we haven't really got time. And your question goes on and on and on. One of the very, very first things we need to do in thinking about creating great questions to ask people is to keep them short. My favourite sort of questions are ones that are limited to 3, 4, 5, 6 words. There's no definite limit on what makes a great question. But if you can strip words out of your question and still get the same sort of response that you're looking for, it's a better question, and you're more likely to get the sort of answer that will enable you to get the sort of information out of somebody that you need. That's the first, and probably my least favourite failure in our ability to ask great questions. The second one is what I call the game show approach to questions. These are questions that start out really well. Everybody is trained in sales in how to use open questions to talk to people. And they can start a question in a beautifully formatted way that is open. It's beautifully open-ended and people can respond in any way they like. And then we make the mistake. We turn it into a who wants to be a millionaire type question by giving people options. What do you think about our product? Do you think it's really good fit for your business, or do you think there are any particular challenges with it? Those second two bits are starting to narrow people down. We've given them two options to choose from, and there is no benefit in doing that at all. The benefit is in actually stripping those options out completely and saying to people, so, what do you think about our product? They then have the option to take that conversation in any direction they like. We're not leading them in a certain direction, we're not narrowing them down, we're leaving it genuinely open. So think about the idea of avoiding who wants to be a millionaire type questions. Again, it's about keeping them simple and it's about keeping them genuinely open. Don't close them down too soon. The next one is to make sure they're not confused. We have a lot of questions that get confused because we feel a little bit sensitive about approaching people with a very, very direct question. If you ask somebody a direct question, so, are you going to buy? So, are you willing to put the order in today? They're nice, simple, clear and crisp questions. And yet we cause all sorts of confusion by weakening them, by adding in lots of other information. That sort of other information around the closing type question could be, so, are you willing to order today? Or are there other people that you need to talk to? And who would those people be in your business? And so on. It doesn't have to be as long as the gymnocracy example, but we confuse it by adding lots of unnecessary terminology in there, lots of unnecessary caveats. So we need to keep these questions really simple. The final thing is we need to keep them what I call clean. Now, a clean question doesn't mean in any sort of inappropriate fashion, although try and avoid inappropriate questions as far as you possibly can. The element of clean is actually about making sure that the question isn't too leading. We're all familiar with the question that is used to describe true leading questions. The one that was asked in a courtroom by a barrister of defendant. Have you stopped beating your wife? There is no way of answering that question that is not going to get you into trouble. Whilst we do want to use closed questions sometimes, and we do want to use leading questions as we start to focus in a sale, most of the time we need to strip out anything that is leading and keep the question clean. The acronym that I use around questioning is the SOX acronym. I'm afraid it's a rather misspelt acronym because there's no K in SOX. I want you to keep your questions simple. I want you to keep them genuinely open. I want you to keep them clean, and I want you to keep them really, really simple. Those are the sort of questions that will enable any sale or any discussion about any subject to be far more about the other person than it is about you. And that way we will get the sort of information we need, we will build relationships with people, and they will value the relationship that they have with us. So, thank you for listening to this short presentation around the 3 biggest flaws involved in questioning. What I'd like you to do now, and I'd really appreciate it, if you would go to the TD Academy and download a simple 1-page document that will take you through how to structure a really, really good question that follows the SOX process.